Hey guys, welcome to day 4 of Vlogmas, and I'm so happy that you're here. I'm going to be talking about my favorite things in books, and this is quite an extensive list. I actually prepared the list here for you guys, but what I will say is that this is going to be a mix between like romance tropes but also like mystery tropes, or just like things that happen in books in general that I really just enjoy and always like root for, because these are just things that I personally love to see or to read about, and to kind of just like have me thinking about it even after I'm done reading the book. And there's quite a couple of books that have done this for me over the span of the years that I've been reading books, so I just kind of want to get into it. So there are a couple of things that I wrote down that I personally enjoy reading in books, and I just kind of want to go through all of them and kind of give examples of where I've seen this or where I've heard of these things, just because this is one of my favorite things to do, and this is one of the things that keep me hooked when it comes to reading books. The first thing that I absolutely love in books is actually the character development, and also having relatable characters. Sometimes like I'll go into a book blind and I'll be super surprised and satisfied with the way the character first started in the book and then ended at the end of the book. And like I love to see the growth of like how this character first started out, and like because of everything that this character experienced and went through, and the conversations that were had throughout this book changed them over time, or kind of like grew them or matured them in some way over time, so that at the end of the book they become this kind of like newer version of themselves, or not newer version of themselves, but a more refined version of themselves. And I think that this is one of the things that I personally look for, because I love the concept of like someone starting off in like this really not terrible place per se, but in this really like dull place, or like this really uninspired place, or like a place where not a lot is going on for this character, or that they're struggling in some sort of way, and then just seeing them rise above the circumstances and go through that adversity, and like really just kind of like put their all into whatever it is that their life's mission is, or whatever it is their goal is for that book. Seeing that test of persistence and like strength, and just like the stretching of the character, of who they are, of everything that they've ever known, and then they have to analyze and figure out, okay, what are the choices that I'm going to make depending on the situations that I'm put in, or the people that I come across, so on and so forth. And I think character development is one of those things for me that I personally will always enjoy. I think seeing the growth in people is something that I also love to see in real life with my friendships and my family, my own personal growth. I love to kind of just explore how I can strengthen my own character, and how I can expand myself or stretch myself beyond what I'm currently in, or like whatever situation it is that I'm placed in, right? And I think seeing that in books not only makes a character very relatable, but it also makes them a very realistic character. And I think that's one of the biggest concepts that I enjoy. I don't like characters that are superficial or shallow, unless the character starts off that way and then grows into like a more retrospective kind of like perceptive character. And I think it's very rare for like, unless it's like a series where the character rises above all these experiences over time, and then by like the 6th or the 7th book they're like this brand new like person. I do enjoy seeing characters that gain something out of their journey, and that really just grow from what they're going through. Then that also leads me to my next point, which is like having a strong female character, or like a strong female lead. I do think that a lot of books that are written by women have really strong female leads. However, there's a difference between being like strong in a dominant way, and then being strong in like an inner strength kind of way. I don't necessarily enjoy reading about female characters that are always like angry, or like that have angst, or that are like kind of like always annoyed or upset by something. I do think that that's normal and it's valid. A female lead that rises above whatever situation she's in and really just kind of uses her inner strength and whatever she's learned along the way to kind of get through what she's going through. I do know that Throne of Glass, a lot of people talk about the main character from Throne of Glass as being a really strong female lead, even though the book is considered YA. A lot of people really do love Feyre as well from the ACOTAR series, which I'm still reading, you guys. But a lot of people really love Feyre as well. And I don't know, there's just something so vulnerable about a strong female lead, because you can understand why they've become the character that they've become given their backstory, their childhood, whatever it is that we're presented with throughout reading this character's journey. And just seeing like how much they've grown and how much they harness that light within themselves and extend it to maybe another character or a situation or anything that gets in their way is something so like important to see. And there's also like a vulnerability about these strong female leads that is often overlooked. See that reflected in a strong main female character. There's something so special about it, because again, it's also like that relatability, or like you recognize pieces of this character that you're like, oh wait, like this is me too, or like, oh yeah, that's something that I would do for myself or for someone else, or whatever the case is. So I do think like a strong female character is vital in books. So now I kind of just want to get into the specific things that I enjoy in romance books in particular, and hopefully I'm able to come up with like a couple of examples. But things that I really enjoy in romance novels are obviously like good chemistry between the two main characters that are like falling in love with each other. Number two is actual like realistic conversations that these characters would be having in real life depending on what circumstance they're in. Also harboring that healthy relationship aspect of, as the relationship is developing, they're forming like the healthy boundaries, they're having that healthy communication with each other. It's not all just like drama and action and like all these things. I actually don't really enjoy the drama and the action and the heartache as much as I enjoy the healthy conversations between characters and like them kind of coming to terms with certain things and really just like talking about their experiences and like who they are and understanding each other, right? Like having that chemistry, that dynamic between who they are and like who they are when they're separated and who they are when they're together as a couple. Miscommunication is a big no-no. I think it's much better to communicate what it is that you're trying to say, even though it comes out awkward or not, you know, in the most eloquent way possible. But as long as you're communicating what it is that you're feeling, what it is that you want, what it is that you're looking for, I think that miscommunication could be avoided really easily. It just takes a lot of effort and it takes a lot of time, and I do think that when authors really take their time to flesh out a character or an idea or a certain conversation that these characters need to have to decide whether they want to move forward or go their separate ways. This is something that I tend to look for in books, and the best example that I can think of as of right now, based on all the books that I've read, is Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. This book actually set my expectations real high when it comes to like a man, because this man was so supportive, so caring, so understanding with the main female character. And the main female character also had her own struggles, he had his own struggles, but as long as they communicated that, and as long as they set their boundaries, and as long as they were on the same page, despite having 500 conversations about the same thing until they decided on how it would be best to move forward, that was something that was so enlightening, and it was so refreshing, because you don't really see that, and at least for me, like I didn't really see that growing up. And I think it also just makes for healthier individuals in general. That also brings me to my next point, which is also having strong male leads, but not in an overly dominant way or in an overly alpha male way. I think a strong male lead is a man who is in tune with his emotions, and not necessarily like always expressing them, but in tune with them, communicates them clearly, and is also supportive and caring and loving towards their partner. I think that a lot of times men are seen as like they have to, you know, be dominant or aggressive or extra protective in order to feel like a man, but I think there's also softer sides to men that are not always talked about or are not always celebrated. And I do think that when an author writes a male character who struggles with anxiety or likes to communicate things clearly, or that really enjoys making their partner happy by doing like little things, a male partner who listens to their female counterpart, it's refreshing to see that in a book. And I think that's one of my favorite things, because I do think that men deserve to get the recognition of like them also putting in the work and them also being in tune with their emotions and communicating that and being expressive about what it is that they're feeling. Because oftentimes, especially like me being from a Hispanic household, the men usually are just like, we have to be protective, we have to provide for our family, we can't show emotion, men don't cry, like all these things that is not necessarily true. And so I do encourage having more of those male characters, whether it be in movies, in books, in podcasts, whatever it is. Like, I definitely love to see men express themselves in a healthy way and giving them the platform to do so, giving them the space to do so, because they are also human. There's something so special and vulnerable about a man, like a male character, expressing themselves that way, because it also sets examples, right? Whether it's a female or a male, it sets examples for, you know, the people that are watching, future generations that will eventually watch or read or see or talk about. And I do think that having those examples is something that is detrimental to our society. Back to the point of having like strong female leads and male leads, but also like having a relationship that develops healthily and over time, not necessarily like an insta love kind of thing or like a quick crush turned boyfriend girlfriend in like the span of like 3 chapters. I do enjoy the slow burn. It's actually one of my favorite like themes in a book. I love when it takes really long for people to like kind of come together and come to the realization of like, oh wait, like maybe this is the person that I'm meant to be with. Oh wait, maybe I am in love with this person. Like when I read that in books, I literally start giggling and kicking my feet, because it's like, how accurate is that? How many times has something happened and you don't realize that your feelings have like changed over time until you hit like that epiphany moment and you're like, oh wait, like maybe I should do this, or maybe I do like this person, or maybe I do need to like go. It's very applicable to many different aspects of life, but I do think like in romance novels, the slow burn, the realization, the tension that builds over time is just fantastic to me, and it just like, I eat it up every time. Like there's no doubt about it. I love slow burn, but that's without saying that it has to also be realistic. And I do think that there's certain things that authors will do where it'll be slow burn, but also maybe like forced proximity, where like they're still kind of like pushing and pulling and like not really acknowledging those feelings and stuff like that. And it's not necessarily that they don't know that they feel this way for the other person, it's just that they know they feel this way, but they're afraid of like saying it. The mindset of like, oh maybe they'll turn me down. But then that's also like where the side characters come in, like the friends or the family or whatever, that they tell them like, but what if this person feels the same way? Like you never know until you try. So it's also like the side characters being supportive of the main characters and encouraging them and letting them know like, hey, if you do this, like I'm here for you regardless of the outcome. I do think that a realistic relationship progression is really important in a book, because the slow burn, the tension, but also the realization, like the slow realization of like, oh, and then they're like, okay, now go for it. So the next thing that I really enjoy, and this is specifically for mystery thrillers, is when an author hides clues or like red herrings in plain sight, and we have to kind of like, we kind of overlook it because we're reading and we're so engrossed in like the mystery and like trying to figure out who it is and who did it, that we kind of overlook all these little like breadcrumbs that the author was putting in over time. And then once you hit like the revelation of the book where like the murderer is exposed or like the mystery is solved, that you're like, oh, like I totally remember reading this back then when, like, you know, I was in chapter 3 or whatever. So I really enjoyed that. I love like looking back at a book or like reading a book and then going back to reference like a past page or something. Like I love doing that in mystery novels specifically. So when a book has that, it's like one of my favorite things. Another thing that I really enjoy in books, it's like one of my favorite things, is when a book makes me feel something. So if a book makes me cry or laugh or just kind of like, I don't know, like it makes me feel something, it makes me feel inspired, it makes me feel moved, whether it's like because of the storyline, because of a character, because of a situation, whatever it is, I love that feeling, emotion that washes over me as soon as I'm like either done reading a book or reading a scene or reading something that happens to a character. I love that reflective period, whether I have to like physically put the book down and like sit there and think, or whether it is that, you know, like I just kind of read the book and then something happens and I just keep like putting things together, and then over time as the book comes to a close, I reflect on all these things that I read. Obviously, childhood friends to lovers. Let me tell you something about childhood friends to lovers. These people have history, and what better way to form a relationship or to have a healthy progression of a relationship over time than a childhood friend that becomes your lover. Like, it's so cute, and it's just so cute to like see them like reminisce their childhood now being adults, and like it brings me so much comfort each and every time, because it's like these people know each other, they're so familiar with each other in some capacity, they love each other and they care about each other, but oftentimes they don't realize that it's a romantic love, and usually it just kind of stays platonic because, again, going back to the communication, like they don't talk about it. I love a good second chance romance, period. Nothing else to it. I also loved forced proximity just because of the tension, but also coupled with the slow burn. You guys, it's literally one of my favorite things. And it's different when you have like enemies to lovers, because I feel like enemies to lovers has like that banter, and I love banter. If characters have banter, period, like you're my favorite character. However, forced proximity to me is much better than enemies to lovers. I don't know why, don't ask me. Tension that builds over time as you have like these characters being in the same place at the same time and like not being able to get out of it. And it could be anywhere, like you could be stuck in an elevator, it could be workplace romance where you guys are like co-workers, so you're forced to be in the same place. I read Happy Place by Emily Henry, and their forced proximity was that they were like pretending that they were still together, so they were in the same room sharing one bed. So that was like that kind of forced proximity. I don't know, each and every time I read a book about forced proximity, it just does something to me. It just does something to me, because it's also the aspect of like you're seeing this person every day, or you're near this person every day, and it's almost like you are seeing who they are at their realest moments without the strings attached of like either being in a relationship or like whatever the case may be. You guys, that concludes all my favorite things about books, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you tomorrow for day 5 of Vlogmas. Bye!